right, good evening, and thank you for joining us for our first in-person conversation in 2 years. Today, Today's She Shares conversation will be with California Secretary of State Shirley N. Weber, PhD, and Assembly Member Akilah Weber, MD. I'm Kamaya Gokhale. I'm an associate at Dewey Square Group, and I'm a mentee in the She Shares mentorship program.
Hi, I'm Christy Weiss. I'm a partner at Capital Advocacy, and thank you. I'm paired with Kamaya as her mentor, and I volunteered her for this. She's doing a great job. Before we get to the program, we'd like to recognize our sponsors. Oh, that's me. Sorry. Not very good at following a script after 2 years, if you can't tell. Thomas Law Group. Anybody want to stand up? Stand up. Sponsors, stand up. Lucas Public Affairs. Sutter Health. Kaiser. Aurora Health Group. The fabulous women of Nimala Pappas and Associates. BMW of North America. Delgado Government Affairs. Where's Connie? There's Connie. And Sacramento Advocates. It's the first round of sponsors.
And we also have Politico, Calpine, Capital Advocacy, Christy's firm, the California Center for Civic Participation, Dewey Square Group, my firm, Dry Bar, KCRA, Cap Radio, and the California Museum and the Secretary of State's office for this great venue. And last but not least, Elevation 10 Winery for bringing the fabulous wine that we've all enjoyed this evening.
So thank you to all of these sponsors that make She Shares possible. It is a wonderful program. I've been a mentor for 5 years now. Took 1 year off during the pandemic because I had my kids at home. It's just such a great opportunity to see everybody and to be together. This year we have 100 women participating, which is fantastic. I think everybody knows that the program pairs young women who are newer in their career with women who are further up in their career. And I will just say it's wonderful to have the opportunity to share and to give back a little bit. So thank you all for being there. And now we're going to get on to the real event. Keep the introductions going.
So, all three of these women have incredible bios. You can read their full bios in our virtual program on the She Shares website. Shirley Nash Weber, PhD, was nominated to serve as California Secretary of State by Governor Newsom in December 2020. She is California's first Black Secretary of State and only the 5th African American to serve as a state constitutional officer in California's 170-year history. Prior to that, she served as an assembly member representing the San Diego area.
In 2021, when Dr. Weber transitioned from the Assembly to the Secretary of State, her daughter, Dr. Akilah Weber, successfully ran for the vacant Assembly seat. Dr. Weber is a board-certified OBGYN who previously served on the La Mesa City Council.
Here to interview this amazing mother-daughter duo is our wonderful moderator, Cassandra Pai, Executive Vice President and Chief Strategy Officer at Lucas Public Affairs. Cassandra has worked in public affairs for 37 years. Prior to that, she served as Deputy Chief of Staff to Governor Schwarzenegger and many other great roles. Now, let's get to the conversation.
Hello. Hi. All right. Welcome back to She Shares in person. So I'm going to start by saying you all have no idea what an honor this is for me. And I've already told our guests that I am likely to need my mother's handkerchief, which I left in my purse, so I may have somebody to get it for me before we wrap up this conversation. But before we begin, I want to do another quick commercial for She Shares. Some years ago, I met a very bright young woman to discuss some ways that she could be more intentional about building a network in Sacramento. And we talked about circles, as I recall. And one of those circles I introduced her to was She Shares. And we continued our coffees and our texts and our wine every now and then, as mentors and mentees do. And I'm so proud of the journey that she has taken since I met her, because she's now California's Deputy Secretary of State and an advisor to Secretary Weber. And through She Shares, this rock star met and mentored another very bright young woman who is now serving as legislative director to Assemblymember Weber. So stand up, LaKenya, Jordan. Stand up, Tiffany Boyd. And let me just say that this is exactly what the founders of She Shares envisioned. And so, Tiffany, it's almost your turn to pay it forward, okay? You go, girls. See, I told you, I was like 5 times I was going to cry. I've started twice. Okay. So now for the conversation that we've been looking forward to for weeks. I did share with our guests the fact that I lost my mom to cancer about 10 years ago. It'll be 10 years in December. And there's not a day that goes by that I don't hear her voice. As I shared with someone tonight, she was the one that instructed me on what I should wear. She just whispers in my ear all the time. I hear her voice all the time. And the one thing I thought about when I got the call from Tamara is the first thing I would have done after finding out I got this invitation to this honor would have been to call my mom. And she would have in turn called my Aunt Bee, my Aunt Helen, my Aunt Hattie, and my Aunt Juanita. And I know you know what I mean. There is no relationship like a mother-daughter relationship, particularly if they're friends. And these two women, remarkable as they are simply put, from what I can tell, good friends. And it's really nice to be with both of you. So thank you so much for this honor. So let's start with a little bit of background. Secretary Weber, tell us a little bit about your roots. Your bio references your father and your grandfather and how the injustices that they faced motivated your activism and your service quite a bit. And I know because you shared with me that you were very young when your grandmother passed away. In fact, I think you said to me up front that it was about a year before Akilah was born that your mom passed away. So would you mind telling us a little bit about your own mother?
Sure. My mother was an amazingly strong woman, and she was the mother of 8 children. And she had been married before she married my dad and had 2 children. But her first husband was very abusive, and she left. You know, she left in Arkansas. She left him, and the system told her she couldn't leave him because they wouldn't let her work because he didn't give her permission to work. Kind of crazy stuff. But my dad had met her years before, and they reunited and married and had children. And my mother was, because she was she had a brother, it's just she and her sister, and her mother left and came to California because she could not stand the racism in the South. And my mother stayed and took care of her grandmother because she loved her grandmother, Grandma Lucy. And so she took care of her grandmother and she refused to leave Arkansas until her grandmother had died. And that's why she never came to California to be with her mother until after that. But my mother was a really family-oriented person. And it's evident in the fact that the 8 of us as kids are extremely close. We are very close as a family. And but that was what my mother always wanted because she felt she didn't have a big family. She wanted a big family, and she got a big family. And she always taught us how to care for each other. So that even though we have differences, we don't really have sibling rivalries like people talk about. We don't have family members that we haven't seen in 20, 30 years. In fact, my family now meets every Sunday at 4 o'clock on Zoom because we missed each other in all the family gatherings. And when we have family dinners, we have huge things. So we have a real sense of family. So I grew up as number 6 of the 8 kids with a high sense of support and purpose, and a network that if I fell down, they would pick me up. And we don't have sibling rivalries because every success I've ever had, my sisters and brothers have been there. They have been on Zoom when I was sworn in. They were in LA at a fundraiser recently. They tell everybody about their sister and how brilliant she is and what I do. They are so supportive of me and my children, that they're really proud of them. And so I grew up in a family that was poor but filled with love. I grew up in the pueblos of Los Angeles and the projects of LA, and then eventually to 45th Street with a family that had really strong family values, who believed very strongly in helping each other. And we still do. We still do to this day. We are very, very close. When my son was ill a few years back, my sisters, my nieces, who were his cousins, came to San Diego for every chemo treatment he ever had. They committed themselves. They told their employers, I can't be here because my cousin has cancer and he's having a treatment. And they showed up at every one of those treatments. So we have a really sense of family. We fuss a lot. You come in and it's loud. You can't hear nothing because everybody talking at the same time. But we were always raised to help each other. If one got in a fight in the projects, we all got in a fight in the projects, okay? And I had a sister who got in a fight all the time, which meant we all had to get in a fight with her. But we grew up really, really in a strong religious family that believed in helping each other and working together to take care of our families and our children. And my parents, that was the gift that they gave us, because my dad was poor, but he worked every day of his life to make sure that we had opportunity and that he would send us to school as far as we wanted to go. And he had a phrase that he would drink muddy water and sleep on a hollow log if I want to go to school. And he meant every word of that. And so, I grew up in a family that was just a regular, ordinary family. But my mother was a strong woman. If you shook her hand, she had a strong grip. I remember she shook hands with Karang, and he goes, wow, your mama got a strong grip, because she didn't back down from anyone. And she stood her ground, and she protected her children and her family, and that was her. So I grew up in a very strong family with a real strong sense of self. And when we came to California, it was because my dad, as a sharecropper's life was threatened. And so they put him in the wagon, took him to Texarkana, and sent him to my mother's mother in California. And 3 months later, he had worked enough to bring all of his wife and 6 children to California to get rid of that. But he was courageous because he went back to Arkansas every 4 years so they would know that he was not afraid and that he was doing his job and taking care of his family. And so it was really, and every time we went to Arkansas, we always had an incident and we were glad to leave because he was not going to back down. And he never taught us to say yes, sir, no, sir, to anyone. He said yes and no is good enough. And it was weird because we were Arkansas kids and all of our cousins, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, not his kids. Yes and no is good enough. And it's the respect that they deserve and the respect you have for yourself. Mm-hmm. So I had a very unusual childhood, but it was great. We had wonderful fun. We was poor as church house, but we didn't know it. And we were truly loved by my mother and father. That was their mission in life, to raise their children and to be strong and to be purposeful.
Fantastic. Thank you. And so, Assembly Member, what was one of your favorite childhood memories involving your mother?
I think one of my favorite childhood memories is that I could always look back and know that my mother was there. Whether it was a piano recital, a drill team performance, a pageant, I could always count on my mother being there and supporting me, regardless of how busy she was as a professor, or then she joined the San Diego Unified School Board. She was on the school board for 8 years. She always made sure to make time for what I was doing and for what my brother was doing. And that has just been such an important piece of my life. Now that I have 2 children, to make sure that even though I have all of these other things going on, to make sure that they know mommy's at my baseball game, mommy's at my swim team competition, mommy's here at my soccer tournament. Mommy's going to help me with all of my science projects. Did that slip out?
She was correct. Mommy's going to do all his science projects.
You know. Oh, Lord, I let that slip. But anyway, the point is that when they look back, they will know that despite the fact that, their mom's a surgeon and now flying back and forth between here and San Diego, that I always make time for them and that I'm always there for them when they need me. And even at times when they don't know that they need me, that I will be there because my mother was always there for me.
And she's the loudest person at the Little
sure
League
am.
game. I'm telling you, the loudest person in the space. She is screaming her brains out. Mommy! She is truly their cheerleader. Oh, unbelievable.
When I send the videos, I tell people, just try to ignore my voice because you can definitely hear it. I send the videos to...
everybody.
To our family, right? And they're like, who is this person that's yelling? Because I'm usually much more quiet and reserved. Yes. But, when it comes to my babies, it's something different.
That's what you do. Yeah. That's what we do.
Yeah.
Though a little birdie told me that with the flying back and forth, someone's office is preferred over yours. You want to say anything about that?
Not really. No. They, my boys love their grandmother tremendously. And one of the reasons why I moved back to San Diego, because after I graduated from high school, I left. And I actually said I was never going to move back to California. And I did my college and med school and residency and fellowship, and then started working all in different places. And one of the reasons why I moved back was because I had my first son. I was living in Dallas, Texas at the time, and I was pregnant with my second. And one of the reasons why I moved back was so that they could be raised around family. And the relationship between my boys and my mother is such a very strong and very special one. And as you mentioned, my grandmother, her mother, passed away a year before I was born. And my paternal grandmother passed away a few years before I was born. So I never had a grandmother. Right. And I would hear all the time from my cousins on my mom's side about what an amazing person, our grandmother is and how she would watch them and spoil them and yada, yada, yada. And I never really experienced that. So to be able to see that with these boys and my mother is absolutely amazing. And they just think she can walk on water. She spoils them. If they have to choose between me and her, they always choose her. Everything is better. Her house is better. Her office is better.
It has a private bathroom.
It has a private bathroom. They, their father's out of town, and we both had to be here, so they actually had to fly up with her today. So they're here in Sacramento today. And so I said, you guys need to come over to my office so she could, do her thing or whatever. Oh my goodness, they were so upset with me. And all day they've just been asking, can we go back across the street to grandma's house? Going to her office. Her office is better. Da, 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 da. I'm like, leave her alone. She's got meetings. But they definitely prefer grandma's office, and she has a private car, and she gets. It's everything about grandma is like 20 times better.
It is everything about grandma.
Everything. Her cooking. Her oatmeal, oh my gosh.
Oatmeal.
Like,
and it's just
nobody can make
oatmeal.
Like, they...
regular oatmeal.
No. They will not eat my oatmeal. They will not eat their father's oatmeal. They will only eat her oatmeal.
Yes.
I have tried. What is the special ingredient?
It's nothing. I mean, it's just oatmeal.
Grandma's.
It's regular oatmeal.
It's grandma's. Okay, let me take you back to your childhood for a couple more minutes. You talked about a little bit about, you said she had your back. You always knew that. We always used to get this question asked, my mom and I, because we were so close. Did you fight was she a difficult teenager? Were you difficult as a teenager? Come on, spill, please.
She really wasn't difficult, but she was a girl with an attitude. So, all teenagers have these attitudes. And just as she was getting, the funniest part, though, when she was getting ready to go off to college, and she was going to spend the summer at Xavier in a special chemistry program. And I don't know, maybe probably because, she was thinking she wasn't an adult yet, but she wanted her way, she wanted this. And so, it was always a conflict between mother and daughter about who's grown and who's not, okay? So it was funny. So she was preparing to go to this event. And she was at this point where she's just like, ugh. And so she put this sign on the refrigerator. I don't know if you remember, 14 days. 13 days. Every day she would change this sign about when it was time for her to leave.
She did a countdown?
She did a countdown on us. Wait a minute, though. She get this countdown. So she going on these days, okay? So eventually we get to like day 7 or something, and she stops counting. I started counting 6 days, 5 days. I'm writing on the refrigerator because I'm ready for you to go too, And it was really, and her dad was like, I think both of y'all losing your mind. I said, we are, but it was really funny because she was like, I'll be glad to get out of here and get on my own. The usual stuff. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay, fine. And then when the reality hit in that she was actually going to leave, she stopped counting. And I started counting. Okay. But the beauty of it was, of course, as usual, we took her to school. She went down to their summer program. And I think I still have it in my files where she wrote me this wonderful letter about how much she missed me and how much she loved me. And she sent me this note. And I said, well, that ain't going to make up for because you ain't coming back still. You're going to stay down there and go to school because, you need to. And, of course, she complained. The first year, everything was wrong. The people couldn't speak English. It smelled funny in the streets. It didn't matter what it was in Louisiana. She was just having problems with being there. And we got an 800 number phone. And eventually, she stopped complaining so much. And her dad was like, has she called to say anything yet? I said, no, she hasn't complained. He said, don't say nothing, because, let's hope it's over, because she was driving us crazy about coming home. And then eventually, the next year, I asked her, when she went back to Louisiana, I said, are you enjoying it? She said, of course. I said, so that's just a phase I went through, but she was fine. And she never really, from that day forward, but like everyone, and I tell parents, when your kid goes off to school, remember, you are the parent. I have friends who let their kid, they so unhappy, I'm gonna let them come home. Don't. That too will pass. Don't do it. And I told him, I said, so keep them there. And one of my friends who kept his daughter, who was a supervisor, he kept his daughter at school. And she fell in, after a year, she was having a fit about coming, but then she loved it. She went to HBCU and never wanted to come back. And when she graduated, she came and thanked me for talking her father into letting her stay, because he was going to let her come home. He says, it's driving me crazy. I said, they all do it. Remember, you are the parent. You know what's right, not them, okay? And you basically have to be strong, hang on, make them stay there a year and they'll stay. But no, she had her attitudes as a teenager, most definitely, especially when you have a teenager who's very smart, very brilliant, and think they have earned the right to be an adult, not the age, but earned the right because they get all A's and they do science projects and they do internships, they do all these things. So they believe they have earned the right to be an adult. Don't make good decisions, but they have earned the right to be an adult. And so it becomes even more difficult to rein them back in sometimes, those who are really, really smart. But
I disagree.
Yeah.
I think I was a very, very good daughter.
I bet you were
and
perfect.
gave very little trouble. And, a part of my practice was dealing with adolescent girls all the time. And so I know how challenging they could be. And, Mom, you really got off very
Listen,
easy.
my kids...
I'm just telling you, you really did.
My kids used to always say, Mom, we're good kids. We've never hit you. I said, that is not an option.
No.
My son said it once. I said, are you crazy? That is not an option.
No.
That doesn't make you a good kid.
I wasn't
that makes you
sneaking
live,
out.
because if you hit me, you would not be alive, okay? So we don't define good that way. But she didn't get in trouble and craziness like that. But she just had attitudes. You know, daughters have attitudes with their mothers. You know, because their fathers don't get into it. You know, they just kind of let them do what they want to do.
I think she was perfect.
You thought she was perfect?
I'm going to side with her. I'm pretty
well,
sure
she had a perfect report card, no question. Perfect attendance, you know, perfect organization stuff, and she was good. But she had an attitude too. Anybody with a daughter who doesn't have an attitude, raise your hand. See what I mean?
Well, you don't know how many people have daughters out here. They could have
Okay,
all
does
boys
anybody
like
have
me.
a daughter? Anybody? Okay, hello. And
have
boys
4
get
sons.
attitudes too. Old people call it mannish.
Yes.
They do.
Very mannish.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun. So let's talk about being a mom to boys, particularly with a strong mom. The boys are 8 and 10. They had to be homeschooled during the pandemic, like so many other parents. Talk a little bit about life raising sons off the baseball field, which you clearly enjoy.
I enjoy now. I didn't grow up playing baseball or any sports, so that was new for me. You know, it's different raising boys. You know, I was an excellent child. You know, I did a lot of reading. Did I not?
Oh, you were, yeah.
So I
read
wasn't
like crazy.
Rambunctious. I wasn't loud. I wasn't all over the place. And boys just have so much energy. They're just like constant, like 24/7. So it's very different for me. But you know, one of the other things is I just from raising not one but 2 Black boys is very different. And you know, growing up, I knew what it was like to be a Black female child in spaces where I was the only one, and the things that I had to endure as far as dealing with my complexion and the texture of my hair. And, you know, I remember the first time, that I remember having braids with beads on them, and the negative reactions that I got from, you know, my fellow classmates in preschool with, oh, what is that in your hair? And, you know, so I knew that. And I said, well, you know what? My boys aren't going to have to deal with any of that, because that's just not what boys are into, right? Mm-hmm. I did not know the other side of it. I didn't know the fact that Black boys are essentially looked at as miniature Black men, and the things that they have to go through at a very young age, whether it's conscious or subconscious. And it's something that I had to learn. I had to be educated on from my mom. I had to actually start looking at the research that had been done in this area at a very early age. My oldest, his personality is very much like mine. He has an attitude. But he's very, very smart and a good kid, very, very respectful to his grandmother. This is the one who, when we're walking, he'll say, oh, wait, I have to go back and walk with grandma, so she's not walking by himself. Kadir is like that.
Yeah,
that is
he does.
Kadir.
Yeah. He doesn't want me to get lost, he said.
He doesn't want her to get lost. He doesn't want her to get lonely, you know. So he's very, very respectful. But it was interesting when he was 3, and we moved to San Diego when he was like maybe 21 months old from Dallas. I had him in this very expensive, very far preschool. And he was the only Black person in the whole school. So not the only Black kid in his class, not the only Black child, but the only Black person. And there was a situation where the teacher at the time, kept calling me to pick him up because he had hit somebody. He had done this, he had done that. And I was, you know, at first I was going to pick him up and I was upset with him and having to take him to my clinic and what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, after a few times, I said, you know, let me talk to him because he's very articulate, always has been. I said, you know, what is going on, Kadir? Do you not like school? He was like, oh, no, I like school. I love school. I was like, do you not like your friends? No, I love my friends. I said, do you not like your teacher? And he said to me, I like my teacher, but my teacher doesn't like me at 3. Okay? So I said, what the heck is going on here? And I started talking to my mom, and she was just telling me about the impressions and the perceptions that people have of young Black boys. And I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to pay attention to this a little bit more. And so I said, okay, if there's ever any other kid who hits you, you make sure to let me know. And so one day he said, oh, I don't remember the boy's name, Johnny hit me. And I said, in my head, that's strange, because I just came in at the end of the day, and I walked in with Johnny's mother. And so the next parent-teacher conference we had, I brought it up. I said, why did my son say that Johnny hit him and it doesn't look like Johnny's mother was called? The teacher was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Johnny just seemed so sorry when he hit Kadir that I just forgot to call his mother. And I said, and why does my son think that you don't like him? Oh, how can nobody think I like them? So it's been was not something that I experienced to my knowledge, right?
Her brother did, though.
Right, that I was going to say. The things that my brother experienced, I was not aware of because I was a kid as well. And so being a mother of 2 Black boys has made me have to be much more aware of their surroundings, what people are saying, what they're doing, how they're treating them, the kind of people that I allow them to be around, make sure that I am present so that they know that I am their mother. And mind you, this happened when they knew that his grandmother was Secretary of State, not Secretary of State, Assembly member, excuse me. Mm-hmm. They knew that his mother was a surgeon, and it still happened, right? So, and his father, graduate degree, works for, one of the cities in San Diego County. So it has been an eye-opening experience for me to see what Black boys, Black men, it's teenagers have to go through. And as Black mothers of boys, what we have to deal with and be afraid of, and think about when we go to sleep at night, and the environments that we put our children in, and some of the subtle things that happen to them that some people may not even be aware that they're doing.
Thank you for sharing that. And all I'll say is cosign times 4.
Yeah.
What has it been like to watch your daughter be a mother?
It's a good thing to watch because she is an amazing mother. She really is. She puts them first. She makes sure that they are adequately cared for. She seems to got all the things that we tried to give her concerning her life and her brother. And, the boys, they love their mother. They love what she does for them because even though she's here in Sacramento and doing an amazing job, she cooks dinner for them every night before she leaves on Sunday. She prepares dinner for 4 days because they don't like their dad's cooking. And rather than tell him to be a better cook, she fixed their dinners in advance. And she wants them to have a good meal. And she calls them every day to FaceTime to do their homework because she wants to make sure they're getting all A's and those kinds of things. So and like I said, and she'll be on a Zoom call over in the corner of the baseball field, and one of them will hit the ball and she'll put on mute and start screaming. And because she's there, she's there for them. And it's very seldom that she's not with them. And that she cares deeply for them. And so she's a very good mother, a really, really good mother, making sure that they have all the things that they need, not just physical stuff, but all the mental things that she's constantly telling them how handsome they are and how good looking they are and those kinds of things, because clearly the world can give you all kinds of images that are undesirable, and forever telling them how brilliant they are and helping them to be much more articulate and more mindful of the things that they need to do. So, and also very respectful of women. She's very conscious of the fact that they should respect women and have the right attitude toward women and those kinds of things. So she's a really good mom. I've seen people who've complained about being mothers. She loves being a mom. She loves being a mom. And it's going to be difficult for the boys to break away from her, but I'm sure they will in time. But she's already planning her sad sob story about how when they go off to school, she's going to cry for a week, and then she's going to do something else for a month, and all this other kind of stuff. So she's really programming them to always want to be near their mother. And
No,
Lord have mercy on their wives.
No.
And that kind of stuff. So
No.
But she loves
They
them
know
to
they are
death.
going to an HBCU, which means they have to leave California.
Well, I know they know that, but you
Right.
but you still got to program.
What I have programmed them to do is to call their mother every day, because I call my
She
mother
called me
every day.
every day. Every day. We had to get an 800 phone number so that she could call home, and that was fine. And then
I still
sometimes
call you every day.
And as I say, and then I was gonna say, and she still calls me every day. You didn't call me the other day, and she apologized for missing one day. I know you missed me because I forgot to call you yesterday. That's what she tells me. But she calls me every day, and then she calls me when she takes them to school in the morning and they're in the car. She's gonna call them and make sure they say hello to me, and then she'll tell them, you know why you call grandma every day? Because you're supposed to call your mother every day.
I sure do. I sure do. So that's what I'm programming them to do, to call me every day.
Yes, there isn't a day that goes by that she doesn't give me a call, and she always
Even when
has,
you're international.
always have been a person who does that. And so when I meet folks and friends of mine, I can say, how's so-and-so, your daughter? They go, oh, God, I haven't talked to her in months, and da-da-da-da-da, and they live somewhere else, and they go, when was the last time you talked to Akilah? I go,
10 minutes ago?
like 10 minutes, and that would mean that's the second call I got, not the first. But it is really interesting, and to see family members or relatives that people don't talk to each other, and I see that all the time, and I like I said, I was raised to always be around my sisters and brothers. So when I have friends who haven't seen their sister or brother in a year, I'm just like, what's wrong with these people? And sometimes they live in the same city because we really see each other all the time, and we talk and those kinds of things and all the family events and that stuff. But yeah, she called me every day, all through school, all while she was in college, when she was in med school and residency and fellowship and everything else. I got a call from my daughter every day, and sometimes more than that if she was cooking and trying to figure out a recipe. She'd call me all during the cooking process. So thank God for cell phones, because they don't charge you for long-distance calls.
She didn't disagree with you this time.
No, I do.
She
I
does.
call her all the time.
I love it.
When she's international, I'm the first person that calls
Oh
her.
my God, don't let me fly nowhere. My whole students, I got like 30 kids on a plane. That must be Akilah. We land we land in San Diego, and the wheels would touch down, and my phone would ring. And everybody like, we know that's Akilah. Or I'd get to South Africa, and before I check in, and I'd buy a phone card to call, but I never used it because she was always gonna call. And as soon as I get to the hotel, they go, you got a couple of calls, okay. And she's gonna track me down. And I was in Zambia once, and the phone system went out, and so did the internet. And she called my agent to track me down. She wanted to know where was I, what kind of places this doesn't have internet, doesn't have phones, And it was just a day or two that I was not in communications. But wherever I am in the world, she has my itinerary, and she's going to be the first person to call me wherever I am, Egypt, Australia, you name it. I'm going to get a call by the time I get to that hotel in whatever country that she has called, and she will be calling back when she finds out when I'm in.
And I'm going to say I don't blame her.
Thank you.
I called my mom every day.
Thank you.
Okay. So we're going to talk about work for just a few minutes. Can each of you share a very specific, challenging experience where you felt both racism and sexism?
Wow. Well, you feel it all the time. And so it's hard for me to pick out an incident that has occurred. But I know when I was a graduate student, and even when I was a professor at San Diego State, I discovered that people did certain things for other people that they didn't do for me. That white women got certain benefits that I didn't get. That men got things that women didn't get. and that the race was always the race issue, and the gender issue was always present for Black women. And so being raised with a mother and a father that told me I was always going to have to be 2 and 3 times as good, I was consciously aware of that. When I got ready to graduate when I was a doctoral student at UCLA, everybody got certain things other than myself. You know, they got opportunities to be a TA for the professor or this or that. And when I got to the end of the line to graduate almost, they've tried to put me out of grad school. They didn't think I would ever finish. They didn't think I would achieve. Now, keep in mind, I got a PhD at 26, okay? Now, when they were talking to me, I was 24 or 23. I think I was 23 years old, 24 years old, when they were asking me to leave the program. Now, and everybody in the university had organized to do it because they saw that I was a Black and I was a female, so I must have poor grades. They didn't even look at the dean didn't even look to see what my grades were. He just started telling me all the rules and regulations. Well, 1, you can't be here more than 8 years, and 2, you have to at least maintain a 3.0 and a blah and a blah. And I looked at him and said, you haven't read my transcript. I haven't been out of high school 8 years, and you've already given me 2 degrees, okay? So I can't be in the PhD program for 8 years, and I ain't even been out of high school 8 years. But what happened was, and it was interesting because there was nothing in the evidence that would indicate that I would not succeed. You know, I was ahead of everybody in the program. I had passed all of my classes. I had a 3.75 in grad school. You know, and I had actually, because no one ever mentored me other than Asante, no one ever told me or counseled me at what I needed to do because they assumed that all the Black students would just drop out of UCLA. No one told me that you don't take 16 credits as a graduate student. No one told me that I'm supposed to take 4 or 8. So like, you know, what the heck? I'm like in undergrad, I took 16 credits every quarter, which meant I finished their whole curriculum of 3 years in 1 year. And I didn't know because nobody told me. But when they discovered that I was about to get out and I was 24 years old, they wanted to put me out. And that was their goal, to put me out of school. And they couldn't because my husband was a lawyer and he threatened to sue them. Because he said the catalog is a contract between the student and the university. She has satisfied her portion of the contract. And if you folks don't give her a committee, then I'm going to sue you, have an injunction against University of California in the morning. And everybody said then, I will be on her committee myself if that happens. But it was that racism that was so interesting to me because I had gone through UCLA, knew it was racist. It didn't have but a few Black students there, but never really like targeted toward me. Because I've been in this department longer than some of the other folks. I'd had all of the professors that they had and had gotten A's in their classes. So here you are now, asking me to leave. They couldn't put me out, so just asked me to leave. And I said, why? They said, well, we don't think you'll ever finish. I was ahead of everybody who came in with me. I was ahead of students who were in the doctoral program who couldn't pass a language exam. And the man told me, well, I don't think you passed your language exam. I said, I haven't tried. You know, and then when I did, and the secretary told me she took the note in there and put it on his desk about a month later, he looked and said, well, I am surprised. Now, this is a man who had gotten A's in every class he ever taught. He was chair of the department. I had an A in every class he'd taken. I had done all the requirements. I even had a special studies class with him. And he still didn't think that I would ever graduate. And so it was really it was shocking to me. And of course, naturally, you think to yourself, well, maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I should go away. Maybe I should just quit because I'm tired anyway. And my husband said, no, you're not going to quit because your mama ain't going to tell me that you married me and you dropped out of school and didn't finish your PhD. So he was more invested in making sure my family wouldn't blame him for something. And so as a result, we pushed through it. But that sexism and racism was there. And it taught me from that point forward, because I had somewhat of an idyllic life as an undergrad and a graduate student, because I didn't have to work really hard to get grades and do things. But my family was supportive, and I was doing, you're doing the right thing. You're doing everything right. You're there on time. You turn in your papers. You're getting this stuff done. And still, at the very end, someone wants to tell me that I should just go away. That's what he told me. I said, go where? Just go away. Why? Well, we don't think you'll ever finish. You haven't finished your language exam. I said, I haven't taken the test. Well, nobody wants to serve on your committee. I haven't asked anyone yet. And yet the attitude was real clear. You just need to go away. And all the other folks who, because they didn't get support and they didn't get the encouragement, would just go away in those programs. So they assumed that when I left and went to San Diego State to become a professor, that I would just go away, that I never would finish. And I was determined to finish. And so it was clear at that point that, as you fight these battles along the way, don't ever take anything for granted. And as I tell my students, I said, I was so glad that when they told me I had to have a 3.0, that I could say I have a 3.75, that I didn't say I have a 2.999, please give me some slack, because they would not have. That I knew I was going to have to hit every spot right in order to get out of there. And it was true. They didn't help me much on my dissertation. They didn't do a lot of other things. And one guy went out of the country. I mean, but it was interesting that and their prize students that they loved so much, who were on the doctoral program when I was an undergraduate, were still there when I graduated. Still there being nurtured by them, being cared and being supported. So it was clear to me that I'm not supposed to be here according to them, and that I would be here because according to me. And it's really quite interesting that made me a fighter every step of the way from that point forward, because I realized there was nothing I could do good enough to overcome their attitude, but I could demand my space.
So let us all commit to always call you doctor. Racism and sexism.
It's unfortunately when you are in the medical profession, especially in a surgical field, as a female and as a Black female, it's something that you encounter, unfortunately, on a routine basis. I remember when I was in medical school, my third year, we were starting our clinical rotations. And I was doing internal medicine, actually. And you're assigned to a resident physician as your person you're supposed to be with, your mentor, or whatever. And in my little group, I was, of course, the only Black and the only female. And so the resident decided that it was his mission during that rotation to break me, and only me. And he would tell me that, I'm going to break you. Today, I'm going to make sure that I break you. Like, that was his mission, to break me. And so he would say things, he would do things to just try to break me down, either get an emotional reaction out of me or get me to quit or something. And I remember one day he said, Akilah, that's an unusual name. What does that mean? And I said, well, Akilah is Arabic for wise, intelligent, one who reasons. And he looked at me and he said, that's not true. Your parents lied to you. Akilah means stupid. And this was in front of the rest of the group that we were with. And he looked at me to see, what my reaction would be. And I just kind of looked at him, in the back of my head. I'm like, you don't know I pledged, because I pledged at my HBCU, so you can't break me. And I'm not going to break down in front of you. I'm stronger than that. But that was interesting, and this was like a month probably after my father had passed, and, my parents were very proud of the name that they had given me. And I reported him, of course, and nothing really happened. But that was one of the first times I can definitely say that I truly experienced racism and sexism as a thing. I remember when I first started working in San Diego. So I had finished medical school, finished residency as an OBGYN, did a fellowship in pediatric and adolescent gynecology. I've been working in Dallas and decided to come home and start. I founded the pediatric and adolescent division at the Children's Hospital in San Diego. I'm the only, pediatric and adolescent gynecologist in San Diego County, actually south of Los Angeles. And it was a few weeks after I started. I wasn't on call. There was a patient, and I was getting ready to go out of town, and I just teed her up with one of the the pediatric surgeons, male surgeons. And also had spoken with his wife, who at the time was a gynecology oncologist. So got everything teed up, even though I wasn't on whatever. So he calls me, and he's like, he's upset that I'm not there. And he told me, this is why I didn't want you to come here. And I told him that they should have never hired you. And I'm like, I got the same degree as you. I operate in the same OR as you do. And just the disrespect in his voice was something that I had never experienced as an attending physician. And, he got a little slap on the wrist when I reported him. I mean, he's still there practicing. But that wasn't the only time that he's felt that it's okay to yell and scream and, just be extremely disrespectful. But within the realm of medicine, especially in the surgical fields, as a female, you are never looked as equal. And as a Black female, you're definitely not viewed or treated as equal.
What keeps you going then?
The knowledge that I have to be there so that when that next med student comes through that looks like me, sees me in that position.
So I want you all to start to think about your questions. Tamara, what do I have, about 3 or 4 more minutes? Okay. You both, in addition to what you've done professionally, have a deep passion for public service. And I would imagine it's not just generational. I think, there might be some genes involved as well. But can you teach public service? Can you teach that passion? Is there a way to do that? Can it be learned, or is it really internal?
I think people can pretend to work at it and do it. At the university, I have, I don't know, as my kids know, I don't go anywhere where I don't meet my students, period. I was in Egypt, somebody hollered my name in the museum. But so it's hard to not do it if you don't love it. First of all, if you don't love it, you're not going to do it. And I've seen the university, when I was at San Diego State, decide they're going to do a mentor program, and they're going to pay everybody $100 to take the students to lunch or whatever they're going to do. And I've seen students come through and say, okay, they've given me this mentor over here, Dr. Weber, in my field, so forth and so on, but now understand, you still my mentor. Now, I got to go meet with this person, but you still my mentor, and whatever he tell you, I'm gonna come back and validate it, okay? So what happens is that, you can create programs that people can get into it, but, mentorship or a relationship is something that is not timed. It is not a 6-month experience. It's not a year's experience. It's a life experience. And if you look at it in that way, that the people you're mentoring, that you're working with, are going to be a part of your life forever. That it's not like you're going to all of a sudden help them get from one step to the other and then life ends. Most folks know my students who come up here, who I've had for years, still hang on to our relationship, and they pass that sense of responsibility on to others. Tiffany Boyd was my fellow. She was my fellow. I hired her in my office, and now she's working for Akilah. And so you share this. You have to love it and understand the unique role you have to help somebody else over some of the humps that you couldn't get over. To this day, my mentor was Malefi Asante, my professor at UCLA. And even when they denied him, he's a renowned scholar, he wanted to serve on my doctoral committee, and he was going away to Buffalo. And he said, I will fly back at my own expense to help her. They said no. And the university had never said no to a faculty member who wants to help a student. They would not let him mentor me. But he continued to support me every step of the way, from whatever professorship I got. And even when I became Secretary of State last year, he called me. Girl, I am so proud of you. He's still at Temple, But it is, if you're a mentor, it's a life experience. It's not just a time frame. It's what we give to each other. It's what's been given to us. And so people can try to do it. But I tell you, if you don't want to do it for your life, don't do it at all. because this person's going to need you more than a year or a couple of hours a week. It may come down to that, but whenever they need you, they will call. My students, whenever they need me, they call. And even though they've been out of my class for 20 and 30 years, they're still my students, and they call. And I can call them if I need something. But it's really, really important that you have to love people. You have to believe you have something to give, and we all have something to give. And you have to take time to see what you give in them grow, because there are some students I've had, oh my God, they're just out the box. But now I see them and they're just so different, and they can remind me of the things that I told them and I helped them with, and whether, food or whatever it may be. But you have to love people. And that's the unique ability we have, is to take what we have and give it to somebody else and to support them and help them through good times and bad times and all those kinds of things. Help them to grow and to become this professional that they want to be, or something else, whatever they want. But you have that ability to help them, to nurture them, and to give them something that nobody else can give them. I run across kids now who are sometimes in college, and they say, I came to so-and-so because of you. Oh, really? I don't even know their name. They said, but I heard you speak, and you were at my school, and you helped develop this program, and you did this, and you gave us this, and gave us this advice. And they took it, and it helped them. So you never know when somebody's listening to you, walking around you, doing things that they admire, that they will pick up on it, and that will be their inspiration to change their life and to make them better. So I tell people all day, you mentor every time you walk the streets, every time you walk around. You're going to help folks if you're doing it, and they're going to look at you and say, this is a person that I want to be like. And then they should have the ability to come and talk to you at any time. And it is extremely important for them to have someone to anchor onto. And it enhances your life. I can tell you that it enhances your life. My mother had this thing called the open hand philosophy. My dad would always tell us she'd give away everything we had if he didn't stop her. But anyway, she had this philosophy that we operate in our family, that in life you have this open hand to give. She said, and when you have this open hand to give, you might drop a few things that along the way. She said, but it also means that you'll also get things. She said, but if you have the closed hand, it is sure you will keep those 2 or 3 pennies in your hand, but you will get no more. And so she said, and so sometimes in the process of helping somebody, they hurt you. I've been betrayed by people. I've been hurt by people, but I've been loved by more than I've been hurt. And you don't stop giving because somebody hurts you in the process. That's their loss, but you still have the capacity to have that open hand and to give.
So we're going to take a couple questions while we wait. I have 2 more. So do you have girlfriends? Do you have a girlfriend circle? I think you do.
I have a crazy girlfriend circle, girl. They come to my house, at midnight, 11 o'clock at night. We play chicken foot to 3, 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, that was my next question. What in the world is chicken foot?
Oh, girl, it's a game. You have to come experience it.
Okay.
Holly Mitchell came once, and she left at 4 in the morning laughing and hollering. It's a domino game, but it's the one time that these sisters, who are normally principals and teachers and developers and investors and all kind of stuff, it's a domino game that we play, but it's the one thing. We all bring a snack, and we can just holler and scream and talk crazy all night long and enjoy ourselves. It's kind of rejuvenating, and then you feel better when you leave. But yeah, I have good friends. Okay, and they're not political at all.
But I'm invited now, right?
When you come to the house, I'll put them together. We can do chicken foot. Okay. Yes.
Do you have girlfriends?
I do. So like I said before, I pledged in college.
Delta?
Yes, I am a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And so I'm very close with my line sisters, even though we are scattered throughout. We still get together. And then even in San Diego, I have developed a very strong support system of sisters who understand what I'm going through because they're going through the same thing. Right. I can just relax, take the mask off, and be myself, And so, everyone needs that. That is a part of just your overall emotional, psychological well-being.
Thank you. Lightning round. What's her favorite color?
Oh, God, I don't know. Blue?
Red.
Oh, really?
I don't know. I just like it. Anything that's loud and lively, I like. Yeah.
Well, what's my favorite color?
Pink? It used to be. but then-
Absolutely not.
It used to be before she became a Delta. She used to love pink. You had pink everything in the house. Everything was pink.
Black.
What's her favorite flower?
And black. Yeah, she loved black too. At one point when she became a teenager, she liked black.
Okay. That was she was a teenager.
Yeah.
Okay. Favorite flower. What's your mom's favorite flower?
See, she don't even know. She's trying to think.
Well, I love roses because that's the one flower you know. I'm not a flower person. I like all flowers, but I love roses. Roses are gorgeous, And we had a friend, Danny, who had, maybe 100 and some odd rose bushes at his house. Yeah, they were absolutely gorgeous. Yeah, he was a good friend.
Assembly member, what is your mother's best dish that she makes?
Everything that she cooks is good. But I would probably say, her drink is cracked tea. Mm-hmm. Everybody loves her cracked tea. And your dish, I guess I would probably say your sweet potato pie.
That's classic.
That is classic.
That's good.
Classic, yeah.
What's her favorite holiday?
Christmas.
Who's your best friend?
My best friend?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you asking her about it?
You.
Oh. My best friend, I would say, is my line sister, Ayana.
Dr. Weber, who's your best friend?
Me.
On that note,
She tells me that all the time, that she is my best friend, and but she's not.
so are we going to circulate for a couple questions, please? This was so much fun. I could talk to you all night.
Thank you so much, Secretary of State Weber and Assembly Member Weber. I just really appreciate you sharing with us this evening. So
Tell us your name, my dear.
I am Angela Fusilier, and I'm the new director for the Northern California Conference of Seventh-day Adventist Women's Ministry Organization. So excited for that opportunity. And I am the first African-American woman in that position. I'm so sad that we are still dealing with first African-American blah, blah, blah. But I would just like to say, with that in mind, I'm sitting in the boardroom as the first and one of the few women, and we're asked our opinions, and when it gets to me, I'm completely overlooked, and it's such a disconcerting experience. And so my question to you is, how do we encourage and support? It's very tiring to be an educator involuntarily in this area, to highlight the insensitivities and the overlooks. But my question again is, how would we encourage white America to be more intentional in these areas? I mean, because you do a whole round table, you do a whole lightning round, and when you get to an individual such as myself, you omit to give them an opportunity to speak. It's so disconcerting. Of course, being who I am, I will tell you how I feel. I will answer the question that you did not ask me, but it shouldn't be that way. So again, how would you encourage, as the firsts are still happening, that white America would be more in tune to that reality? Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Well, I think you've answered it. You basically want to make sure that they don't overlook you. That even if they get there, you say, "Excuse me, I think it's my turn," and you tell them what you need to tell them. And then if it happens again, you do it again. And then eventually you meet with them and says, "Have you noticed that for the last 3 meetings, you've skipped me?" And I mean, you have to put it in people's minds. It's hard to believe that people don't see you, but they don't.
That's true.
And I think it's based on the environment in which we live. And I say this, that sometimes it's not even mean. I remember when I said, as an African American, because we're sometimes the only one in a room or a couple of people, I said, I'm like a freaking calculator. It's 4 people here. It's 4 black people. It was only 3 black people here yesterday, and there's 1 here today. I mean, so we walk into a room and we're just like a human calculator because we have to defend ourselves and know that there'll be things coming at us. And so we're conscious of that. So when I go in a room and I say to some of my friends who are white, I say, well, how many black people were there? They go, I don't know. They have to start thinking. Well, you know what? When I first went to Ghana many years ago, and there weren't a lot of white folks in Ghana, and somebody came back, and Deborah, my good girlfriend, and I were in Ghana, and they said, how many white people did y'all see in Ghana? We go, was some white people there? We had to sit and think. We said, well, wait a minute. And Deborah said, I think there was this guy at the bar. Remember that he was a pilot? Oh, yeah. So we could name these people, but I realized that being in an environment where it was all African Americans and everything was cultural and everything was African, and I was just enjoying it so much, I just overlooked the white people. Okay, and I think what happens when we get into these cultural situations where there's a whole lot of white folks and 1 or 2 black people come in the back and they're just enjoying themselves and they may even talk to you, you're not seen. And so I've learned that it's not always intentional, it's just cultural, that they just don't see us. And they're so used to it. When you read the history of black people, we were the maids, the cooks. We could walk in and out of the room and they never pay us any attention. They could say whatever they wanted to say in front of us because they did not see us, okay? And so we have to make sure that they then see us, that they know we're there. But like I said, when I went to Ghana, and that just shocked me because when the person asked me, did I see any white people, I was like, I don't know. The guy, because we were at a hotel, it was black people running the hotel, and it was black folks in the kitchen and black folks making our beds. And when we went to many of the tours, there were mostly black folks on all the tours. And it's a black country. And all of a sudden, somebody asked me about white people, and I had to really stop and think, did I see any white folks in Ghana? And then we start realizing there was some there. So we have to make ourselves seen. Now, they may then intentionally tell you, well, I left y'all because I didn't want to hear from you. Well, then, you got to deal with that. But oftentimes it's just that they overlook you because the culture and the world in which they exist allows them to do that.
Thank you for that.
Dr. Weber and Assemblywoman, nice to see you both. Hey, Cassandra. Listen, staying on the first theme, I couldn't let today pass. First of all, I enjoyed this and learned something new about you both. My goodness gracious. But I couldn't let this pass without asking your thoughts on what is going on with the Supreme Court nominee. And your thoughts
I purposely
about it.
didn't ask because I knew one of you would.
Well, I couldn't let that slide. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, I think it's, I think many of us know the answer in this room, especially if you happen to be a black female. There is just an expectation that we always have to prove that we belong someplace, and that we have to be, 2 or 3 times better, run 2 or 3 times faster or harder, or jump 2 or 3 times higher. The background and the credentials of our next Supreme Court justice are outstanding and would do circles around all of those senators that were trying to question her today. And yet she still had to be subjected to individuals who still feel like they're better than. And that even though you have all of this and I have this, I'm still better than you because I am a white male. Mm-hmm. And, there was something that I saw on social media, maybe last week or something, that really kind of hit home because it listed all of her credentials, what she's done in her career, the schools that she's been to, and they put them side by side with the last 2 Supreme Court justices. Mm-hmm. And not surprisingly, her credentials, the time that she spent on the bench, far exceeded those of the last 2 Supreme Court justices. And yet she's having to prove that she belongs there, mm-hmm. even though she's better than the people that are already there. Mm-hmm. So, unfortunately, it is something that we constantly have to deal with. It's sometimes surprising for people because they say, well, they think that once you get a degree or once you get a job or once you get this, that you are above dealing with some of the racism, some of the micro and macro aggression. And, what I've come to realize is that when you get to that level, you actually have more because you're viewed as a threat. If you don't have the education, if you don't have the experience, if you don't have the job and you don't have the money, then you're not going to be, in charge, potentially in charge of someone, a white male or someone else like that. And so you're viewed as competition, you're viewed as a threat. And so you deal with it from all levels. So, when I still practice, but my earlier days of practicing in San Diego, I would deal with racism from my patients. I tell people all the time, I was never called colored until I was practicing in San Diego. And a patient was like, oh, you're a colored doctor, right? Someone that wanted me to take him to surgery. I was like, okay, I'm not operating on you today. but so you deal with it at that level, but then you also deal with it from your peers, right? Because they are essentially threatened by you. And so it's something that unfortunately we have had to deal with, we continue to deal with. I definitely look forward to the day when we no longer have to deal with it, because it has, it's exhausting. I think, Sister Pierre talked about the fact that it's exhausting to have to deal with it on a daily basis. It's exhausting to have to put the mask on when you go in certain places. It's exhausting to know that you've got to walk this fine line, because if you don't say enough, then people don't think that you know anything. But if you say too much, then you are, too loud or too angry or too bitter, right? So it's interesting, and it's hard to watch what she's having to go through. Mm-hmm. But what she's doing is she's showing the strength that all of us Black women have. Mm-hmm.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Renia Webb from Oakland, California, and I'm running for City Council, District 4 in Oakland, California. And when I win, I'll be the first Black person to hold this seat, male or female, in the history of Oakland. And I'm a mother of 4. I love your relationship between you and your daughters. So reminds me of me and my 2 girls, but I also have 2 sons. And when you said about the difference of how our babies are treated, I've experienced that time and time again, especially with my one son, who I call my little chocolate drop. And he's getting ready to go off to college. And sometimes I hate to live in fear. I hate it. I hate it. I hate having to worry about my babies, how to behave in spaces where I've been the only Black person, literally since in high school, And so my question to you is, how do you deal with it? How do you reset yourself? My girls and I just went out on Sunday, and I can't believe I stayed out to 1 o'clock in the morning, but I just needed it, And so what do you both tell yourself, or how do you get over those dark days when you just are tired?
I always tell folks that I may be busy, but I won't be tired. And I seriously mean that, because what motivates me to continue to move forward is I study a lot of history, and I read a lot of books about Black women and history and Black men. And I know that my father suffered far more than I did, and he never got tired. He never got too tired to get up to go to work. He never got too tired to take care of his family. He never got too tired to drive me to some competition on the other side of town and early in the morning. He never got tired, And I remember once I had to study for an exam, and I was up all night. And that was when I'd moved back home from living in the dorm. And my dad got up all night, walking the floor, watching me in the room. You still up? You still up? And he would work 10 hours a day, and this was Friday night. Saturday morning, as I had been studying all night, the last couple of hours, I took a nap to get up to get dressed and showered and get to UCLA by 8 o'clock in the morning for my test. And I woke up to the smell of bacon and eggs. My daddy, who got up every morning at 5 o'clock to go to work, was up making my breakfast because he said I needed my strength. And so he never got tired. And when I see my people who have never gotten tired, Fannie Lou Hamer and others who fought so hard for us to have a space, and I say I have far more resources and far more help and housekeepers and folks working for me and this and that than they ever dreamt of, I can't get tired. So I may do diversions like you do and call my girlfriends over for chicken foot and holler and scream half the night, but I won't get tired and I won't lose focus because they never did. The women who have nurtured all of us never gave up on us, even in the midst of not being able to vote, not being able to be counted, not being able to leave their husbands who were abusive, whatever the deal was, they never gave up. And I tell people to think about that. Because just when you get tired and say, I'm just tired of doing this stuff all the time, I said, go out and turn on some loud music and dance yourself around the living room, fall out, and then get up and keep going. Because they never got tired. And the system counts on us to get tired. I'm sure that sister who's sitting for the Supreme Court, right, for the seat right now, is tired of people asking her stupid questions about legal things that they don't even know anything about themselves, and questioning her authority to basically answer the questions. I can tell sometimes in her voice with Lindsey Graham this morning where she just got tired of answering the same dumb question. He kept answering over and over, and he kept trying to pretend like he was some legal scholar. Well, I know this, and so at some point she just got quiet and just let him keep talking, and then he eventually said, okay, well, I see, and then he asked another dumb question. You know what? I said, I saw her and I thought, this sister is tired of this fool. But she also knows that this is one of those tired experiences that I have to do so I can get in a position to help women like me. So when you get tired, put on some good music, like you doing out in state half the night. When you get tired, remember those folks who suffered for you. I can remember bills that I did in the assembly that people wanted me to tone it down or do something different and not defend those who were being harassed by police officers. And I'd go and that night I'd think and I'd pray about it. I'd say, and they'd come back the next day and we'd take the battle. And they said, what made you decide to do that? I said, I thought about those people standing on that bridge in Selma. I said, they did not know what was on the other side. They did not have the protection of the federal government. They knew that if they were killed in the process, there would be no justice. And yet they took the bridge anyway. So we have a legacy of people who have always been tired, but have never stopped moving. And so I tell people, I may be busy, I may have a whole bunch of things to go, I may be mad at some crazy people, but I refuse to get tired.
I'm going to let you answer that question till you get the last word, Assembly Member.
So, of course, I concur with what my mom said, but I think one of the things that we all need to recognize as women, as humans, is that we do need to reset. Mm-hmm. And, I think within our culture, especially within the Black culture for women, you just go, go, go. You carry everything on your shoulder, and you've got to keep moving. Mm-hmm. And that is good in that things get done, but the cost of that is oftentimes our health. Mm-hmm. And so, when we look at things, I'm an OBGYN, when we look at things like the increased risk of Black women dying in childbirth or having poor outcomes in childbirth, regardless of your socioeconomic status, that has to do with the impact of microaggressions, that has to do with the impact of weathering and the role that it has played on our bodies, on our hearts, on our lungs. And so it is extremely important. People say, African Americans have high risk of diabetes and hypertension and blah, blah, blah. It must be genetic. It's not genetic because you don't see it in Africa. What it is it is the stress that we are under, and the fact that we have not encouraged and taught each other the importance of resetting. And, you know, our grandmothers, great-grandmothers or whatever, the way in which they would reset at times, like my mom kind of alluded to, was through prayer, because they were very, very, very spiritual individuals. You know, I actually meditate. I've tried to get my boys to start meditating too. But that is, for me, a way of resetting, to make sure that I am centered, that I am grounded, that all the things that have come at me throughout the day, I'm able to release. You know, for me, yoga is good and Pilates are good. I do that with some of my members. But whatever works for you is what you need to do to make yourself whole and complete. Because you can't keep going, and giving, and think that you will be a complete individual. You have to make sure that you are resetting yourself, giving back to yourself so that you can get up and keep moving.
So Senator Atkins refers to the two of you as the Doctors Weber, which I just love. And so I would just like to thank you both for just a remarkable, moving, funny, interesting, intellectual, smart, witty conversation. And thank you so much for sharing some of your stories with us and for sharing each other with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.